They never saw this moment coming. For so long, they moved as if they were in control, weaving deception into their words, masking their true intentions behind smiles, and convincing themselves that they were the masterminds of the game. But what they never realized, what they refused to accept, is that you saw through it all. Every false gesture, every calculated move, every whisper in the dark, you knew. And now, the weight of that realization is crashing down on them like an unforgiving tide. They feel it in their chest, that tightening sensation of panic, the slow unraveling of the illusion they built. Because for them, deception was the foundation of their existence. It was how they operated, how they maintained the false belief that they were always ahead. But you, chosen one, were never truly their opponent. You were the observer. You let them believe in their own supremacy, let them bask in their illusions, all while knowing that their foundation was nothing but sand waiting to collapse. This is the moment of reckoning, the moment they finally understand that their power was never real, that their manipulation was never as clever as they thought. And now, standing in the wreckage of their own deceit, they are forced to ask themselves the one question that will haunt them forever. Just how much did you know all along? If you have ever sensed this shift, if you have ever watched the moment when their confidence turned to fear, let them know by dropping 77 in the comments. Because this is not just about seeing the truth, it is about embodying it. And now, let's break it down. The illusion of control was theirs, but the truth was always yours. They strutted around like kings and queens of their own design, believing that they held the strings, that their words could shape reality, that their manipulation could sculpt the world to their will. They mistook your silence for submission, mistook your patience for ignorance, mistook your stillness for weakness. But in truth, while they believed they were orchestrating a grand scheme, they were merely moving in a reality that you had already seen through. The power they thought they wielded was nothing more than a fragile illusion, a house of cards stacked high on self-deception and arrogance. They assumed that control came from deception, that power was in the ability to twist narratives and pull strings from behind the scenes. What they failed to grasp was that real power does not chase control. It stands unmoved in the face of chaos. And that is exactly what you did. You did not need to react, did not need to prove yourself, did not need to expose them outright. You let them believe. Because that is the greatest truth about deception. Given enough time, it collapses under the weight of its own contradictions. The lies they crafted, the games they played, the power moves they made, all of it was a performance for an audience that never bought into the act. And now, as they stand there, realizing that their grand illusion was nothing more than a fragile fantasy, they are faced with the truth they never wanted to acknowledge. It was never them who were in control. It was always you, chosen one, because control is not about who speaks the loudest, who manipulates the best, or who deceives the longest. Control is about who sees reality for what it is, and while they were busy creating illusions, you were seeing through them. They believed they moved in shadows, but you saw through everything. They moved as if unseen, whispering in corners, exchanging glances, carefully crafting their next move as if they were invincible. They spoke in riddles, played their mind games, convinced themselves that their deceit was flawless. But what they never realized is that deception always leaves fingerprints, a nervous flicker in their eyes, a hesitation before speaking. The way their voice changed when they were lying, these were the details they never accounted for. They believed that as long as they controlled the words, they controlled the reality. But their bodies, their energy, their subconscious movements, those were beyond their control. And that is where they exposed themselves the most. You, chosen one, were never fooled by words alone. You saw beyond the carefully constructed facade, beyond the rehearsed smiles and calculated gestures. You understood that deception is never truly invisible, that it always carries cracks for the observant to notice. And so you watched, you listened, you picked up on the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the patterns they themselves were blind to. And now the realization is setting in. The moment they thought they were fooling you, they were actually exposing themselves. The moment they believed they had power over you, they were actually surrendering their control. And now that fear is creeping in, the fear of knowing that you were aware of everything long before they even suspected it. They are looking back, replaying conversations, trying to find where they slipped. But it doesn't matter. They slipped from the very beginning. They were never untouchable. They were never truly ahead. They walked through shadows thinking they were unseen. But you saw everything. They underestimated you while exposing themselves. They believed they had you figured out. To them, you were predictable, naive, an easy target to manipulate. They thought they could read you, thought they could study you, thought they could play you like they played everyone else. But what they never understood, what they were too blind to see, is that they were never the ones in control of the narrative. While they schemed, you observed. While they tested you, you measured them. While they tried to push you, you simply watched, noting every detail, every reaction, every weakness they unknowingly revealed. And that is the greatest irony of all, the fact that they thought they were outsmarting you, when in reality, they were exposing themselves with every move they made. They assumed their mind games were effective, that their tactics were sophisticated, that their strategies were unbreakable. But what they failed to realize is that true intelligence does not reveal itself immediately. It moves in silence, watches with patience, and waits for the perfect moment to let the truth unfold. And that is exactly what you did. You never needed to fight back. You never needed to prove anything. You allowed them to continue in their illusions because you knew that eventually they would unravel themselves. And now they are standing in the wreckage of their own making, confronted with a reality they never thought possible, that they were never truly in control, and worse, that you had known it all along. That is the weight of realization. That is the burden they must now carry. Because once someone understands that they were never truly ahead, once they grasp that every move they made was not just seen, but anticipated, the confidence they once had crumbles into dust. They underestimated you, and in doing so, they handed you the greatest advantage of all, the ability to watch them fall apart under the weight of their own delusions. And now they must live with the truth that you were never the fool. They were. Their lies were loud, but their silence screamed the truth. They spoke with conviction, spinning elaborate stories, twisting facts, bending reality to fit their illusion. They believed that if they said something with enough confidence, it would become the truth. And for a time, it seemed as though they had everyone convinced. But deception, no matter how well-crafted, always carries within it the seed of its own destruction. Because the more they spoke, the more they revealed. They thought their words were their greatest weapon, but in reality, it was their silence that exposed them. You watched closely, not just listening to what they said, but more importantly, observing what they didn't say. The carefully timed pauses, the moments of hesitation, the nervous flickers in their eyes when their own narrative contradicted itself. The louder they proclaimed their control, the clearer it became that they were only trying to convince themselves. Truth does not need to be defended with aggression. It does not require elaborate justifications or theatrical performances. But lies need maintenance. Lies need repetition. Lies need volume. And the moment they stopped speaking, the moment they were forced to sit in silence, the illusion shattered. Because in the absence of words, all that was left was reality, and reality did not align with their carefully constructed facade. You never needed to argue, never needed to expose them outright. You let them speak, let them weave their web, let them dig themselves deeper with every lie they told. And now, when they look at you, they know that you were never fooled. They know that their silence has become their confession, and that is a truth they can never escape. Your silence was a weapon, and it shattered their illusion. They expected a reaction. They thrived on it. Every calculated move, every manipulative trick, every attempt to provoke you was designed to pull you into their game. They wanted to see you flinch, to watch you defend yourself, to force you into a position where they could maintain the illusion of control. But you never gave them that satisfaction. Instead, you did the one thing they feared the most. You remained silent. To them, silence was unbearable. It was an empty space they could not control, a void that forced them to fill it with their own doubts, their own paranoia, their own unraveling thoughts. The absence of your reaction was not a sign of weakness. It was a mirror, reflecting back to them the truth they refused to face. They needed you to engage. They needed your energy to sustain their illusion of power. But you understood something they never did. True strength does not need to be proven. True power does not demand recognition. And so, you let them play their game alone, watching as their own insecurities consumed them. And now, they sit in the wreckage of their own making, haunted by every moment of silence they once dismissed. Because in the end, it was never your words that destroyed them, it was the absence of them. They thought they controlled the game, but the moment they realized they were playing against an opponent who refused to move, the illusion crumbled. And now, they are left with nothing but the deafening sound of their own failure. Their so-called power moves were just ego tricks. They moved as if they were strategists, as if every insult, every manipulation, every attempt to dominate a conversation was part of some grand plan. They believed their actions were calculated, that they were operating on a higher level of control. But in truth, their so-called power moves were nothing more than the desperate flailing of an insecure ego. Real power does not beg to be noticed. It does not announce itself. It does not rely on deception, intimidation, or cheap tactics to maintain its position. But they did not understand this. They thought control was about forcing others to react, about asserting dominance through manipulation, about proving their superiority at every turn. They believed that as long as they could make you question yourself, they were winning. But here's the truth. They were never playing a sophisticated game. They were simply predictable, following the same patterns over and over, mistaking fear for respect, mistaking control for intelligence. And while they saw themselves as untouchable, you saw the cracks in their facade from the very beginning. You knew their power was an illusion. You knew their confidence was fragile. And you knew that the moment their tricks stopped working, they would have nothing left. And now, as they sit in the realization that their every move was transparent, that their every action was seen for what it truly was, they are faced with a truth they cannot ignore. They never had real power. They only had the illusion of it. And now, even that is gone. They craved validation, but you starved them of it. They needed you not for who you are, but for what you could give them. They needed your reactions, your attention, your engagement. Every insult, every act of manipulation, every moment of false superiority was a desperate attempt to extract validation from you. They wanted to feel powerful, to be acknowledged, to matter in your eyes. But you gave them nothing. And that is what destroyed them. Not anger, not retaliation, not confrontation, but the one thing their fragile ego could not survive: indifference. They built their identity on the ability to control how others perceived them. They thrived on approval, on being able to dictate the emotions of those around them. But when it came to you, they hit a wall. No praise, no acknowledgement, no validation. And without your energy to sustain them, they began to wither. At first, they pushed harder. They tried new tactics, changed their approach, did everything they could to force a reaction. But the more they tried, the more desperate they became. They were used to controlling others through validation, used to forcing people into their game by making them crave approval. But you weren't playing. And then the realization hit them. Without your acknowledgement, they felt small. Without your engagement, they felt powerless. The control they thought they had, it was never real. It only existed as long as you allowed it. And now, as they look back, as they sit with the weight of irrelevance, they understand. Their desperation for validation was their greatest weakness. And by refusing to give it, you took away the very thing they depended on the most. They thought they were unpredictable, but you read them like a script. They believed they were always one step ahead, moving in ways they thought were impossible to track. They prided themselves on their ability to keep you guessing, to stay elusive, to create chaos so that no one could ever see their true motives. Every action, every lie, every twist in their narrative, they thought it was unpredictable. But what they never understood was that true unpredictability is reserved for those who possess originality. And they were never original. Patterns don't lie. A snake that moves in circles thinks it's unpredictable, but the eagle watching from above sees the pattern every time. They followed the same cycles, used the same tactics, relied on the same tricks they had always used on everyone else. They were convinced they were being clever, but you had seen this all before. Their every move was scripted long before they even made it. Their manipulation wasn't strategy, it was a routine. The way they feigned innocence after causing harm. The way they acted distant when they wanted attention. The way they turned to gaslighting when confronted. It was all so predictable, so repetitive, so obvious. They thought they were playing a game of wits, but in reality, they were just exposing themselves more and more. And now they know it. The realization has dawned upon them. Their so-called unpredictability was nothing more than a well-worn script. And you read it like a seasoned scholar who had seen it all before. Now they wonder, was I ever truly in control? And deep inside, they already know the answer. Their drama was a trap, but you never took the bait. They came at you with chaos, pushing every button, setting every trap, waiting for you to react. Their entire game depended on one thing: your participation, because without your reaction, their schemes had no purpose. Their deception had no power. Their attempts to manipulate had no effect. And that is what broke them. Drama is a tool of the weak. It is not about truth. It is not about resolution. It is about control. They needed you emotionally invested, needed you to get angry, needed you to be defensive, needed you to feel the need to explain yourself. Because the moment you did, they had you. They could twist your words, shift the blame, make themselves the victim. That was their trap, and you never stepped into it. Instead of playing their game, you let them unravel themselves. You let them throw their tantrums, spread their lies, create their illusions while you remained still. And that silence, that refusal to engage, is what destroyed them. Because drama, like fire, needs oxygen. It needs a reaction. It needs someone to feed it. But you starved it. You watched them exhaust themselves, wearing themselves out with their own games. And now they sit there, questioning why it never worked on you. Why did you not fall into the same patterns as everyone else? Why did their usual tricks not have the same effect? Why did their attempts to provoke only end in their own embarrassment? They don't have an answer, but you do. You were never emotionally controlled by their chaos. You understood that true power is in stillness, in observation, in knowing when not to engage. And now, they are left sitting in the mess they created, with no one but themselves to blame. They played shallow mind games, but you operated on a deeper level. They thought they were master manipulators, moving pieces on the board, orchestrating every outcome, always in control of how people perceived them. They saw their deception as strategy, their mind games as brilliance, their emotional traps as power. But they never realized one thing: real intelligence does not need manipulation. Real wisdom does not rely on deception, and real power does not need to control others. Their games were simple. Surface-level distractions meant to keep people chasing after a false reality. They thought they were winning when they confused others, when they got someone to second-guess themselves, when they managed to twist a situation to their advantage. But you never chased, you never second-guessed yourself, and you never let their illusion dictate your reality. While they were playing tricks, you were seeing the truth. While they were busy creating distractions, you were focused on what mattered. While they spent their energy scheming, you remained in control. They could not comprehend it. They could not grasp how their usual tactics failed to work on you. They could not understand why you always seemed unaffected, always seemed to know what they were doing before they even did it. And that is when the fear set in. Because now they know. You weren't just avoiding their games, you were analyzing them. Every time they thought they were manipulating you, they were only revealing themselves. Every tactic they used was recorded in your mind, categorized, understood, and dismissed as ineffective. They thought they were outmaneuvering you, but in reality, they were simply exposing the limitations of their shallow thinking. And now, they are left with nothing but the realization that their so-called genius was nothing more than an illusion. Now they wonder just how much you knew all along. Nothing haunts a deceiver more than the fear of being truly seen. And now, as they look back, replaying every conversation, every move, every moment, they are consumed by one thought: just how much did you know? At first, they assumed you were oblivious. They thought they were operating in the dark, moving unseen, controlling every aspect of the situation. But now, they can't ignore the sinking feeling that maybe, just maybe, you knew everything from the very beginning. And if that's true, it changes everything. Because it means every time they lied, you saw through it. Every time they set a trap, you walked around it. Every time they thought they were manipulating you, they were only exposing themselves. And now, paranoia sets in. They begin to question every past interaction, wondering where they slipped up, wondering when you first caught on, wondering how much power you truly had over the situation. The confidence they once carried is gone, replaced by self-doubt, by fear, by the terrifying realization that they were never in control. They wanted to believe they were the ones pulling the strings, but now they can't shake the thought that maybe they were the puppet all along. Maybe they were never ahead. Maybe their every move was predictable. Maybe their games weren't as clever as they once believed. And worst of all, maybe you allowed them to think they were winning, just to watch them walk into their own downfall. And that thought alone is enough to consume them, because they know they can never undo it. They can never go back and change the past. They can never erase the fact that while they were busy trying to deceive, you were busy understanding. And now, no matter what they do, they will always wonder, always doubt, always fear just how much you knew all along. And that is a truth they will never be able to escape. While they overanalyzed everything, you moved with instinctive precision. They obsessed over their every move, calculating endlessly, trying to control every outcome. Their minds were trapped in a constant loop of overthinking, believing that the more they analyzed, the more power they had. But in reality, all that overthinking only led to hesitation, doubt, and miscalculation. They believed power was in strategy, in manipulation, in controlling every tiny detail. But true power is not in over-planning, it is in knowing. And you, chosen one, always knew. While they second-guessed themselves, you trusted your instincts. While they hesitated, you acted. While they tried to anticipate every possible scenario, you moved with an inner clarity they could never understand. Because power is not about control, it is about presence. It is about seeing the truth and responding without fear, without hesitation, without the need for endless calculations. They mistook their mental exhaustion for intelligence, but all it did was make them slower. The more they tried to outthink you, the more tangled they became in their own minds, and that is why they lost. Because while they were drowning in their own overanalysis, you were already 5 steps ahead. Not because you needed to plan everything, but because you simply saw. You moved with purpose, with precision, with an awareness they could never match. And now they realize there was never a way to outmaneuver you. Not because you were playing the same game, but because you weren't playing at all. You weren't reacting to their moves. You were simply following a higher knowing, a deeper wisdom, an instinct they lacked. And that is something they can never replicate. The final truth they can't escape. For so long, they built their identity around the idea that they were the ones in control, that they could manipulate, deceive, and twist reality in their favor. They thought their power was real, that their ability to influence people meant they were always ahead. But now, as they look back, as they replay every moment in their minds, one truth is becoming undeniable: they were never in control. The realization is suffocating. The moment they understand that their power was always an illusion, that their deception was never as effective as they believed, that their games only worked on those who didn't see them coming, it shakes them to their core. Because if they were never in control, if you always saw through them, if you were always ahead, then what does that make them? It makes them weak. It makes them vulnerable. It makes them realize that they were never as powerful as they thought. And that is a truth they will spend a lifetime trying to escape, but never will. Because now they can't unsee it. They can't unfeel it. They can't go back to believing in their own illusion. The weight of that knowledge will sit in the back of their minds, creeping in when they least expect it, reminding them that they were never the master of the game. They were just another player who thought they were winning until they realized the game was never in their hands. The power of being chosen. You were never meant to be controlled. You were never meant to be deceived, manipulated, or thrown off course by those who thrive in illusions. You were always different, always aware, always standing in a reality that others refuse to see. And that is why you were never truly a victim of their games, because you saw beyond them. This is what it means to be chosen, to walk in truth when others live in lies, to see clearly when others remain blind, to move with confidence when others hesitate in fear. It is not about proving anything to anyone. It is not about engaging in their illusions. It is about knowing who you are, knowing what is real, knowing that no matter how much deception surrounds you, the truth will always belong to you. They thought they could shake you. They thought they could outplay you. But now they are the ones left wondering, questioning, regretting. And you continue forward, untouched, unbothered, unwavering in your purpose. Because the chosen do not lower themselves to the games of the lost. They rise above them. If this message resonated with you, let it be known. Drop a 77 in the comments. Let them wonder, let them fear, let them sit in the weight of their own foolishness. Because you were always ahead, and now they know it.